Hello, Serge here from the
Golden Bear Golf Center.
The Golden Bear Golf Center in
Carrollton,
Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas, about the opposite side from Fort Worth, where they're playing the Colonial Invitational this week, and we're on the back of the front tee. And so I'm standing here with Russ Ryden. Russ is our certified swing surgeon, certified fitter here in I guess the Dallas area, which is one heck of a big area. And I understand you not only fit here, but you're someplace else, Russ?
I'm also at the Bobby Moore's driving range in Colleyville, Texas, which is closer to Fort Worth. So I have two locations, one close to Dallas, one close to Fort Worth.
So you got both sides of town covered.
I do.
All right, that's good. Now, basically all you do is fit clubs, right?
That's correct.
All right, and I know that one of our students showed up with a whole set of clubs of yours, and another one had a whole set of clubs that Lynn had built.
Mm-hmm.
So they were basically, and Lynn and Russ are basically our two guys that were instrumental in getting the fitting program going. When I saw that, when we were just giving a list of fitters, they weren't building them the way we believe they should be built. That is, with smaller heads and shorter shafts, especially in the driver. But both guys here their clubs were spot on. They were hitting the ball good. And one of the things they were two of the guys that had about the best setup they showed up with, of everybody that showed up, because why? The setup determines the motion, but what determines some of your setup? Your equipment. And so they had good clubs. And what's some of the first things you look for in building the set of clubs, or fitting the clubs before you can build them?
Well, you've seen me go out here with my Sharpie and draw that line, and the first thing that I want to know is
draw that line on what?
Draw the line on the ball.
Right, correct. I wanted you to say that.
Have them hit the club, and I'm looking at whether that line is up, whether it's sitting this way or whether it's sitting that way, because that tells me what the line angle of that head is, and I can do it spot on just like that.
And somewhere too about how they're approaching the ball.
Right, and if the guy is setting up to the club, and the club is not right for his setup, then he's going to start from a bad position.
All right, now, when you say not right, you're very talking about lie angle. So we know if the ground is here, we want the club to sit relatively flat. We don't want it toe up, and we don't want it heel up.
Right.
And because toe up, in many cases, people think that toe up is always going to be a pull because the heel's going to drag. But when you're hitting off fairways and there's not a lot of grass here to drag it, it can actually bounce off and ricochet wide open.
Right.
But definitely in the rough, it would do that. So lie angle is critical because it affects you hitting the sweet spot. It affects the launch angle and the spin rate and the spin that's going to be put on the ball, correct?
Mm-hmm. And very often it affects setup.
Exactly, because sometimes the person starts to feel that I keep hitting the toe on the ground, and they start changing their hand position, whatever, because they know that their toe shouldn't be up in the air or whatever, and that changes their arm position, gets them out of dynamic balance. Another thing
I find a lot of golfers actually set up to the club.
Exactly.
And if the club doesn't set them up, they're starting wrong.
Exactly, and the setup determines the motion, so if your setup is bad, your motion is doomed from the beginning because you're out of balance. Out of dynamic balance, and if you don't start in dynamic balance, you can't stay in dynamic balance, which leads then that the line angle is important. Let's talk about loft. I mean, a lot of times, sometimes people say, well, I hit my 6 and 7 iron the same distance. That's because one of them is the same club with different numbers.
Could very well be. I had a guy come in to me.
Meaning the loft is, one of them is either de-lofted to the lower one, or the lower one is it's lofted to the low one. They each got the same loft, basically. Mm-hmm. And that a line loft machine will tell you that.
Right.
But this is another good point you're bringing up here.
I had a guy come in to me recently telling me that his buddy just got a new set of clubs, and he's now hitting his 7 iron past him, and he could never hit his 7 iron past him before. So I checked the loft of his clubs, and it turns out that his 7 iron should have been labeled 6. So he has a set that's labeled 4 through A. That's really 3 through P. Somebody changed the numbers on those clubs so that he believes now that he can hit his 7 iron as long as he used to hit his 6 iron, but his 7 iron is a 6 iron.
So could that have happened where they were automatically built that way, or maybe lofted that way? Very likely that's the set, the numbers they're using for every set. So they're trying to make you believe that you're hitting the ball longer. And what's going to happen with that is those folks will probably not be able to hit their probably 2 highest clubs because their 5 is really a 4 and their 4 is really a 3. And if they were having trouble before hitting their 4 iron, they're going to have a lot more trouble now because and with their 5 iron, because their 5 iron is really a 4 iron.
That's
it
right.
says 5, but it has 4 loft.
That's right.
So that's some of the ways you get tricked into this. Well, I think the other thing that was good today was naturally we worked on setup again with all our students, and they were able to get, and most of them had pretty good setup clubs, and at the better setup, we were able, the biggest thing we worked on today was alignment, because we had 100% wrong alignment, so we're working on each of them getting into the proper alignment. And naturally, if your clubs are towed up or the wrong way, that's going to change your alignment too, if you're lining up off your club face as your starting point to get an aiming line towards the target. And with the better alignment, we were working on getting to the finish and getting them off their back foot into the finish, because most of them, we had 2 lefts and 3 rights, but the rights were always reverse weight shifting because they having to pull the ball back to the target. So equipment is critical. And like I tell a lot of folks, if your clubs are wrong and you get the wrong clubs and you start swinging better and your swing improves, but your clubs are bad, you might even start hitting the ball worse than what you used to, because making a better swing, you can't take the stripes off of that tiger. It could actually start performing worse for you.
And the clubs are going to shape the swing. If the weight's wrong, then the release timing is going to be wrong. And until we get the weight right for that particular golfer, he's going to shape a swing to the weight that he has in his hands.
All right, and also by the weight, you're meaning that's going to affect the load and the unload of the club at impact.
Yep.
And so all of these things come in, and a good fitter can do that for you. We have the list of certified fitters on the site throughout the country, and I think we got about 23, 25 of them right now, and we're trying to grow that. And these fitters, Russ and especially Lynn, built up the model and the parameters of what equipment they needed to have, what they had to do, what our parameters are in terms of clubs. We believe in shorter drivers, shorter but to the right length for the student. And there's almost, unless you're a giant, 46 inches for a driver is not good. And we don't believe in the big 460 heads. We like the smaller heads, because the head's smaller, but you're going to hit it if it's right. And just remember this: a bigger head has only what? More room to miss the sweet spot. And when you miss it by farther, it's going to be a worse hit. So our guys are following all those parameters, what we believe in the clubs and the equipment we need that they have to build the clubs the way that we believe it does, right down to MOI. And I think that's the moment of inertia, and I think that's one of the most factors. So Russ is one of our top guys in the country. He's in Dallas, so if you don't live in Dallas but you're flying to Dallas, you can come and see Russ. If you don't live in Columbia but you're flying to the East Coast somewhere, we had one student that got his clubs because he took his vacation in Charleston, South Carolina, so he'd only have an hour and a half to drive to see Lynn. So you know who these guys are, and they're 2 of our best, and all of our fitters are the best around the country because they fit the surge weight. So from Russ Ryden at the Golden Bear driving range here, or golf center in Carrollton, Texas. This is the Surge. We'll be talking to you all soon.